In sunny California, where Hollywood dreams collide with the stark realities of life, a narrative unfolded that shook America to its very core. O.J. Simpson, a football legend, cinematic star, and beloved public figure, suddenly transformed from hero to prime suspect in a brutal double homicide. This case encompassed everything: love and hatred, fame and disgrace, racial tension and legal battles. It divided a nation, compelled a re-evaluation of justice, and irrevocably altered the media landscape of the country. What truly transpired on that fateful night of June 12, 1994? Could a man adored by millions be capable of such savagery? And how could a single trial exert such profound influence over American society? Prepare to delve into a labyrinthine world of evidence, testimonies, and enigmas, where nothing is as it appears at first glance. This is a tale that continues to provoke controversy and leaves more questions than answers. Orenthal James Simpson, known to the world as O.J. Simpson, was born on July 9, 1947, in San Francisco, California. His childhood was far from idyllic. Growing up in a low-income family in the Potrero Hill housing project, young O.J. faced numerous hardships. Due to a deficiency of vitamins in his diet, he suffered from rickets, ironically compelling the future star runner to wear corrective braces on his legs during childhood. Simpson's teenage years were marked by conflicts with his father and frequent street brawls. He even spent some time in a juvenile detention center. However, despite these obstacles, O.J. harbored a dream. "One of the things I wanted most while growing up in the ghetto was not money, but fame," he later recalled. "I wanted people to recognize me." Fate smiled upon the young Simpson when his natural talent for running emerged. This ability became his ticket from poverty to stardom. At the University of Southern California, he became part of a team that set a world record in the 4x400-meter relay. His speed on the field was astonishing, capturing the attention of professional football teams. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in Frankfurt, Germany, on May 19, 1959, Nicole Brown was born. She was the second of 4 daughters in the family of Lou Brown, an American serviceman, and Judith Bauer, his German wife. When Nicole was 4 years old, the family relocated to California, settling in Garden Grove. In contrast to Simpson's tumultuous childhood, Nicole's youth was more carefree. She quickly adapted to the American way of life, embodying the quintessential California girl. The blonde beauty with a gentle demeanor effortlessly won the affection of those around her. At school, she was popular, eventually becoming the prom queen at Dana Hills High School. Nicole loved spending time on the sun-kissed coast, surfing with her older sister Denise. "She was a little surfer girl," Denise reminisced. "We grew up at the beach, and she always had her own little surfboard." After graduating, Nicole began contemplating her career. Her journalism teacher, Bill Pristridge, recalled an intriguing moment: "We all talked about what the kids wanted to be, and when it was Nicole's turn, she told the class she wanted to marry someone rich." While this seemed like a jest, fate had a life-altering encounter in store for Nicole. The year 1969 marked a turning point in O.J. Simpson's life. At the age of 22, he became the first overall pick in the NFL draft and signed a contract with the Buffalo Bills worth $350,000, a staggering sum at the time. His career soared as he shattered record after record: the most rushing yards in a season, the most rushing yards in a single game, and the most touchdowns in a season. Yet O.J. possessed another talent: he had a knack for captivating people. This charisma led him to the world of television, immersing him in the surreal realm of celebrity. The boy from the impoverished neighborhood of San Francisco could not get enough of this new reality. In 1977, as O.J.'s career reached its zenith, fate intertwined his path with Nicole Brown. Their meeting occurred at the elite Beverly Hills club The Daisy, where 18-year-old Nicole worked as a waitress. O.J., then 30, immediately took notice of the beautiful blonde. Nicole, who knew little about football, initially did not grasp the extent of O.J.'s fame. For most of America, the Juice, as he was called, was both a sports legend and a Hollywood star. The encounter was electric. It was love at first sight for both of them. Just chemistry, witnesses recalled. OJ frequently returned to the restaurant, determined to win Nicole's heart. However, the situation was complicated. OJ was married with 2 children, and his wife, Margaret, was pregnant with their 3rd child. But this did not deter either OJ or Nicole. David Loban, an old friend of Nicole's with whom she shared an apartment, recalled, "I remember her coming home and saying, 'Oh, there's this football player who wants to take me out.' I asked, 'Oh, what's his name?' She replied, 'O.J. Simpson.' I said, 'Oh, you're joking.' Because I knew he was a famous runner and a fantastic football player." In the game of temptation, Nicole was clearly at a disadvantage. He was 12 years her senior, a star, a multimillionaire. She was working in a restaurant and was financially struggling. Yet OJ's persistence paid off. Loban recounted their first date. She came home at 2 in the morning, and I asked, "Where have you been?" She said, "Oh, we had a wonderful date. I remember he picked me up in a black Rolls-Royce, and on his Rolls, it said Juice. That was his nickname." However, even then, the first warning signs emerged. Loban noticed that Nicole's pants were torn. When he inquired about it, she replied, "Well, he was a bit aggressive and tore my pants." Loban was concerned, but Nicole insisted, "No, I think I like him." Despite OJ being married, their relationship rapidly progressed. OJ even insisted that Nicole move out of the apartment she shared with Loban. He told her, "I don't want you living with anyone. Even though I was just a completely platonic friend." And from that moment, he got her an apartment, Loban recounted. Thus began a love story that would later transform into one of the most discussed tragedies in the annals of American justice. After 3 years of dating Nicole, O.J. Simpson finally divorced his first wife, Margaret. In February 1985, he married Nicole in a lavish ceremony at his Rockingham estate. David Loban recalled, "We were invited, and it was wonderful. I took tons of wedding photos, and it was simply stunning. What a celebration." The couple settled into the Rockingham mansion, and by 1988, they welcomed 2-child daughter, Sydney, and a son, Justin. Externally, they appeared to be the perfect couple. OJ, the football legend, loved to be seen in public with the stunning Nicole by his side. For Nicole, it was the embodiment of a Hollywood dream, and she quickly adapted to her new lifestyle. A family friend remarked, she enjoyed attending charity events, mingling with all these stars and wealthy individuals. But she didn't become one of those celebrity wives who just wanted to be in the spotlight. She wasn't that kind of girl. By 1988, they owned a $5 million mansion surrounded by Hollywood's elite, an apartment in New York City, a $2 million beachfront home in Laguna Beach, and, of course, their respective Ferraris. Life was filled with endless vacations, often accompanied by Nicole's sisters. Yet behind the facade of a perfect marriage lay a fatal flaw. J's explosive temper. Tormented by jealousy, the football legend frequently succumbed to fits of rage. However, Nicole was headstrong and stood her ground. Nicole was feisty. She could just push his buttons, and he could explode, a family friend recalled. Unsure of what to do, Nicole sought the counsel of therapist Dr. Susan Forward. Nicole was a very complex woman. The situation was very complicated. When you're married to a superstar who earns a fortune and lives a glamorous lifestyle, the perks were such that she saw no reason to leave, Dr. Forward explained. Long before her marriage, Nicole encountered the dark side of OJ. During an argument, he shattered the windshield of their Mercedes. "As a football player, I think there was still some violence within him," commented a family friend. The cycle of violence became a norm. There is a period of calm. The woman thinks perhaps he is changed. Something happens, she says something, she does something, and he disapproves. It doesn't take much to provoke his rage, and the next thing you see is him expressing that fury through beating. Then he engages in what I call false repentance. I love you, don't leave me, I can't live without you, it will never happen again, I swear. And she believes him, and then it all starts over, explained Dr. Forward. Despite OJ's denials of these facts, the prosecution had grounds to believe that the couple indeed experienced conflicts involving physical violence. Shortly before her demise, Nicole confided in a friend that she feared for her life and well-being, as Simpson periodically lost control. The first serious incident that drew the attention of law enforcement occurred on New Year's Eve in 1989. OJ and Nicole's marriage had already lasted 4 years when the situation reached a new, violent peak. Responding to yet another domestic violence call, the police arrived at the Simpson mansion. They rang the doorbell, but the housekeeper refused to let them in. Meanwhile, Nicole emerged from the bushes, partially undressed, screaming to the officers that Simpson was trying to kill her. "I am in the business of changing people, and I do it quite well," OJ would later say. "But let me tell you, any abuser has a conscience like Swiss cheese, you know, with big holes in it. And as a result, there is no moral compass." David Loban recalled, "I remember hearing on the news that he had been arrested and that she had forced him to be arrested at the house. I was just so upset. I think that was really the first time I understood that, you know, you have to be careful. I mean, he is a violent man, and so on." O.J. Simpson was charged with assaulting Nicole, and he did not contest the charge. He was mandated to undergo psychological counseling. "Oh, it was a joke," Dr. Forward later commented. "Some friend of theirs had a few phone sessions with him, and I think it might have been just 2 or 3. With each police call, O.J. Simpson left a wide trail of circumstantial evidence, all pointing to an unpredictable and brutal individual. The pattern was always the same: Nicole always forgave him, and O.J. always repeated the cycle. One of Nicole's friends recalled, "I didn't even know what domestic violence was until all of this happened. You see, they keep it deeply secret. So when this whole story unfolded, I was in shock." O.J. employed various methods of intimidation. He had a collection of knives, and when he learned that this was one of her fears, he used it against her, one of Nicole's close friends recounted. "My wife told me that Nicole spoke about being afraid, worried that O.J. said he was going to cut her into pieces." Finally, in 1992, after 7 years of marriage, Nicole had had enough and filed for divorce from O.J. Simpson. It was New Year's Eve 1992, and they were at Spago's restaurant. Nicole told her friend, "Come on, let's go to the restaurant. I'm filing for divorce tonight." But this did not put an end to the violence. On October 25, 1993, less than a year before her death, OJ's rage was finally captured on tape when Nicole called 911. The recording captured her screaming, "O.J. Simpson! O.J. Simpson!" When the dispatcher asked, "Is he threatening you?" Nicole replied, "I'm going crazy. He's going to beat me to death." Just 5 days before her murder, a shelter worker received a call from a woman who identified herself only as Nicole. She reported that the woman was in mortal danger. Still under the influence of the cycle of violence, Nicole continued to see O.J. Simpson even after the divorce. But now, informed about the legal system, she kept photographs of her bruises and injuries in a safety deposit box. Denise took pictures of her face and bruises so she would have evidence of the violence, so she could leave the children because she was worried about them, a friend recounted. "And if you ever saw those pictures, it was horrific. I mean, he really. I was so upset by it, I just, I couldn't believe someone could beat a woman like that. It was just awful." In January 1992, after obtaining a restraining order, Nicole finally decided to end her marriage to O.J. Simpson. She moved with her children into a rented house in Brentwood, trying to start anew. The divorce was finalized later that year. Under the terms of the divorce, Nicole received a one-time payment of nearly $500,000, as well as $10,000 monthly for child support. She also retained ownership of the Ferrari. However, freedom from O.J. proved to be illusory. Despite the restraining order, he continued to stalk Nicole. She saw him literally everywhere. The woman developed paranoia, one of her friends recalled. In January 1994, seeking greater security, Nicole moved again with her children, this time to a 3-story house in the same neighborhood. Her friend Kato Kalin also moved in with them, renting the guest house on her property. Nicole's life gradually improved, and she began to build grand plans for the future. She opened a small interior decorating business, with clients including her ex-husband and his friends. Nicole was a caring mother, managing without nannies, organizing activities for her children, and hosting cozy family gatherings. Meanwhile, OJ began a relationship with Christy Prody, who was a brunette at the time of their meeting. Later, Christy confessed that OJ was obsessed with Nicole and compelled her to change her appearance. She dyed her hair blonde and attempted to dress like Nicole at his behest. They later separated due to OJ's legal troubles, but he also stalked Christy, and she feared him because he did not know how to let people go. Not long before the tragic events, Nicole met and began actively socializing with Ronald Goldman, a 25-year-old waiter at her favorite restaurant, Mezzaluna. They had known each other for a month and a half before her death and were friends who jogged together, drank coffee, and rode in her Ferrari. Some believed they were romantically involved, but there was no official confirmation of this. OJ seemed unconcerned about Nicole's new relationship. According to friends, he had more women than he could ever handle. However, his obsession with controlling Nicole did not diminish. During this period, the tension between the former couple continued to escalate. OJ threatened to report Nicole to the IRS for undisclosed real estate sales. This would force Nicole to vacate her current home to avoid a hefty tax bill. Despite all these troubles, Nicole tried to maintain a positive outlook and build plans for the future. She often spent time with her sisters and friends, attempting to enjoy her newfound freedom. However, the shadow of her past with OJ continued to loom over her, creating an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty that, unfortunately, would prove prophetic. June 12, 1994, marked the last day of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman's lives. The day began ordinarily at 6:30 a.m. Nicole, a fervent fitness enthusiast, set out for her usual morning run. Well, it's fashionable in California. You have to look good, you have to be in shape. Yes, she ran about 9 miles a day, her sister Tanya recalled. Meanwhile, less than 10 miles away, at the Riviera Country Club, her ex-husband O.J. Simpson was also engaged in morning exercises, playing golf with his Hollywood friends. In the evening, he was scheduled to fly to Chicago to participate in a celebrity golf tournament for Hertz Rent-A-Car, the company that supported his multimillionaire status. At 4:30 p.m., Nicole attended her daughter Sydney's dance recital at Paul Revere School. OJ was also present, sitting behind the Brown family. Nicole pointedly ignored him, which was understandable given OJ's recent threats to report her to the IRS. At approximately 6:30 p.m., Nicole, accompanied by her children, set off for her favorite restaurant, Mezzaluna, where they enjoyed dinner. There, she encountered Ron Goldman, who was working as a waiter. They engaged in a brief conversation before Nicole and her children departed for home. At 9:40 p.m., Nicole received a call from her mother, Judith. Phone records indicate that the call occurred at 9:42 p.m. Judith called Nicole and said, "Hey, I think I lost my glasses at the restaurant. Could you check if you can retrieve them?" Detective Tom Lang, who later led the murder investigation, recounted. This seemingly trivial event would prove to be fateful. Nicole called Mezzaluna, where Ron Goldman informed her that the glasses had been found. "I'm a friend of Nicole's. I know where she lives. I can drop them off at her house on my way home," Ron offered. Around 10:00 p.m., Nicole was taking a bath, lighting candles, and creating a relaxing atmosphere. The following morning, she and her husband were scheduled to depart for the airport. Meanwhile, at 10:03 p.m., Simpson attempted to reach his girlfriend, but there was no response. Ron Goldman finished his shift at the restaurant, went home to change out of his waiter's uniform, borrowed a car from a friend, and headed to Nicole's to return the glasses to her mother. The front door of the house was wide open. The lights were on, and the porch light was illuminated. Nicole was barefoot, so she was undoubtedly expecting his arrival with the glasses, Detective Lang reported. However, something went horribly awry. Although records show that at 10:30 p.m., a man and woman passed by Nicole's house and noticed nothing unusual, hell broke loose just 10 minutes later. A witness reported hearing screams from an alley across the street, approximately 250 feet east of the house, around the time of the murder. Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson were brutally attacked by an unknown assailant or assailants. Both victims lay dead in a pool of blood before the house, stabbed to death. At 11:45 p.m. on June 12, 1994, Nicole's neighbors stumbled upon a horrifying scene. Nicole's Akita dog, agitated and with blood on its paws, was running down the street. The dog ultimately led the neighbors to the mangled bodies of Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson, who had already been dead for over an hour. Detective Tom Lang recalled, "I received a call at around 3 a.m. at home from my lieutenant, John Rogers, reporting a double homicide in the West Los Angeles area, and that was all." When Lang arrived at the crime scene, he observed that the entire Bundy Drive was blocked off and cordoned. He and other detectives quickly realized that this was a murder of rage. These individuals were not robbed. This was not a drug hit. They were slashed and butchered, and one head was nearly severed. The following morning, O.J. Simpson was informed of the murder of his ex-wife while he was in Chicago. He returned to Los Angeles on the next available flight. The police swiftly focused their attention on Simpson as the primary suspect, given his history of domestic violence and his behavior following the murders. On June 17, 1994, O.J. Simpson was charged with double homicide. Instead of surrendering to authorities as agreed, Simpson vanished. This led to one of the most unforgettable chases in American television history. Around 6:20 p.m., the police announced Simpson as a fugitive. At 6:45 p.m., Detective Tom Lang called Simpson's attorney, Robert Shapiro, to inform him that O.J. was now considered a runaway. Shapiro organized a press conference, during which Simpson's friend, Robert Kardashian, father of the famous Kardashian sisters, read a letter that many interpreted as O.J.'s suicide note. At 7:00 p.m., an officer spotted Simpson's white Ford Bronco on the I-405 freeway. At the wheel was Al Cowlings, a longtime friend of O.J., while Simpson sat in the back seat with a gun pressed to his head. This marked the beginning of the chase of the century. The police pursued the Bronco through the streets of Los Angeles, while news helicopters broadcasted the event live. Millions of Americans were glued to their televisions, watching the unfolding drama. The chase lasted nearly 2 hours. People poured into the streets, waving and cheering for Simpson, despite the serious charges against him. This was a testament to his popularity and the complex racial climate in America at the time. Finally, around 8:00 p.m., the Bronco returned to Simpson's home in Brentwood. There, O.J. spent nearly an hour conversing with the police over the phone before ultimately surrendering. In the vehicle, police discovered $8,000 in cash, fake mustaches and a beard, O.J.'s passport, and a gun. This dramatic chase and arrest marked the beginning of what would later be termed the trial of the century. They also demonstrated how deeply this case resonated with American society, transforming a legal drama into a national spectacle. Following O.J. Simpson's arrest, intense preparations for the trial commenced, promising to be one of the most sensational in the history of American justice. Both the prosecution and defense meticulously crafted their strategies. The prosecution, led by Marcia Clark, focused on constructing a compelling narrative of Simpson's guilt. They amassed a significant body of evidence, including a bloody trail leading from the crime scene to Simpson's home. A bloody glove found at the crime scene matched a pair discovered at O.J.'s residence. Fibers from the carpet in Simpson's Bronco matched those found at the murder site, and DNA evidence purportedly linked Simpson to the crime. Additionally, the prosecution planned to utilize Simpson's history of domestic violence against Nicole as evidence of his capacity for brutality. Conversely, Simpson's defense team, quickly dubbed the Dream Team, comprised the nation's top attorneys, including Robert Shapiro, Johnny Cochran, Alan Dershowitz, and F. Lee Bailey. Their strategy was multifaceted to challenge the competence and integrity of the Los Angeles police, to propose a theory of a racist conspiracy against Simpson, to contest the reliability of DNA evidence, which was relatively new in legal practice at the time, and to portray Simpson as a loving father and respected member of society. A key element of the defense strategy was to accuse Detective Mark Thurman, who discovered the bloody glove, of racism and evidence fabrication. The selection of the jury became a critical moment in trial preparations. Both sides understood that the composition of the jury could significantly influence the trial's outcome. The racial factor became pivotal. The defense sought to include as many African Americans as possible, while the prosecution aimed to create a more diverse jury. The media circus surrounding the case reached unprecedented proportions. Journalists from around the globe converged on Los Angeles to cover every aspect of the impending trial. Television networks prepared for live broadcasts from the courtroom. Judge Lance Ito, appointed to preside over the trial, faced immense pressure. He had to ensure a fair trial amid unprecedented media scrutiny and public interest. Meanwhile, the families of the victims, the Browns and the Goldmans, were also preparing for the trial. They hired their own attorneys to represent their interests and actively appeared in the media, demanding justice for their deceased loved ones. In the lead-up to the trial, tensions reached a peak. America, along with the entire world, held its breath in anticipation of one of the most dramatic and controversial trials in history. On January 24, 1995, the trial of O.J. Simpson commenced, quickly earning the title the trial of the century. The Los Angeles courtroom became the focal point of global attention, with each day of the trial transforming into a televised drama. The opening statements commenced with prosecutor Marcia Clark, who articulated the prosecution's theory. She depicted Simpson as a jealous and violent man who murdered his ex-wife in a fit of rage. Clark meticulously recounted the history of domestic violence and presented numerous physical evidences that, in her view, unequivocally indicated Simpson's guilt. Johnny Cochran, the lead defense attorney, focused his opening statement on the potential conspiracy by the police against Simpson. He asserted that racist officers fabricated evidence to frame the renowned African American. Over the ensuing months, the courtroom became a battleground of intense legal conflict. The prosecution introduced a substantial volume of evidence, including DNA evidence that demonstrated Simpson's blood was at the crime scene. 911 call recordings in which Nicole complained of threats from O.J. photographs of Nicole's abuse from previous domestic violence incidents. Testimonies indicating that Simpson purchased a 15-inch knife shortly before the murders. The defense, in turn, sought to discredit every piece of evidence presented by the prosecution. They contended that the DNA evidence was contaminated due to police negligence. Detective Mark Thurman, who discovered key evidence, was a racist and could have planted evidence. The timeline presented by the prosecution was deemed implausible. One of the most dramatic moments of the trial occurred when Simpson attempted to try on the gloves found at the crime scene. When they proved too small, Johnny Cochran famously declared, "If it doesn't fit, you must acquit." Another pivotal moment arose when the defense introduced audio recordings in which Detective Thurman used racist slurs. This severely undermined the credibility of the prosecution's key witness. Throughout the trial, media attention was unprecedented. Millions tuned in daily to courtroom broadcasts, and every twist of the case was discussed in news and talk shows. After nearly 9 months of testimony, on October 3, 1995, the jury rendered its verdict. Within mere hours, they reached a decision. O.J. Simpson was found not guilty on both counts of murder. The announcement of the verdict was broadcast live, watched by over 100 million Americans. The reaction to the verdict was polarized. Many African Americans celebrated, viewing it as a triumph over systemic injustice, while many white Americans were shocked and disheartened. This verdict marked the culmination of one of the most controversial and discussed trials in American history, leaving a profound impact on the legal system and the public consciousness of the United States. The O.J. Simpson case transcended a mere criminal trial, serving as a litmus test for racial relations in 1990s America. The racial dimension of the case deeply influenced the trial's proceedings, the strategies of both sides, and the public perception of the trial. From the outset, Simpson and his defense team emphasized the racial aspect of the case. O.J. claimed to represent not only his interests but also those of the entire African American community of Los Angeles. This was particularly relevant in the context of recent racial unrest in the city following the police beating of Rodney King. Johnny Cochran, Simpson's lead attorney, skillfully wielded the race card. He framed the case as an example of systemic racism within law enforcement, asserting that the Los Angeles police sought to frame a successful black man. A key moment came with the revelation of Detective Mark Fuhrman's racist remarks. The defense presented audio recordings in which Fuhrman used racial slurs, severely undermining his credibility as a prosecution witness. The jury's composition also reflected the racial dimensions of the case. The final jury included 9 African Americans, 2 whites, and 1 Latino. This sparked discussions about whether such a jury could be impartial. Public reaction to the trial was sharply divided along racial lines. Polls indicated that the majority of African Americans believed in Simpson's innocence, while the majority of white Americans considered him guilty. This division mirrored deeper racial issues within American society. Media coverage of the trial often focused on racial aspects as well. Commentators discussed not only the evidence in the case but also broader issues of racial inequality within the criminal justice system. The defense's strategy, centered on racial issues, elicited a fervent response from the African American community. Thousands of activists recalled instances involving other Black Americans who had unjustly suffered within the justice system. The prosecution, in turn, sought to avoid accusations of racism, emphasizing that their case was based solely on evidence rather than the defendant's race. The not guilty verdict for Simpson was perceived by many African Americans as a victory over systemic injustice. Conversely, for many white Americans, it symbolized how racial issues could overshadow the pursuit of justice. The Simpson case became a catalyst for extensive discussions on racial issues in America. It illuminated the profound disparities in the perception of racial matters and the justice system among different groups within American society. Following the trial's conclusion, many civil rights advocates asserted that Simpson played a pivotal role in exposing racial disparities in the United States. The case became a turning point in discussions about race and justice in America, the repercussions of which are still felt today. On October 3, 1995, after less than 4 hours of deliberation, the jury delivered its verdict. O.J. Simpson was found not guilty of the murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. The announcement of the verdict was broadcast live and viewed by over 100 million Americans, making it one of the most watched events in television history. The reaction to the verdict was immediate and polarized. In the courtroom, O.J. Simpson smiled and said, "Thank you." 2 jurors smiled in response. Another raised a left fist in salute to Simpson as the jurors exited the courtroom. The victims' families were shocked and disheartened by the verdict. Relatives believed that the jurors were enchanted and under the influence of celebrity, thus unconvinced by any arguments against him. On the streets, the reaction was even more dramatic. Many African Americans celebrated the verdict as a victory over systemic injustice. Scenes of jubilation were witnessed in numerous Black neighborhoods across the nation. Conversely, many white Americans were shocked and outraged. For them, the verdict became a symbol of how celebrity and racial issues could overshadow the quest for justice. Media reaction was equally intense. Television networks aired continuous analyses and discussions. Experts in law, race relations, and sociology attempted to elucidate the significance of the verdict for American society. The verdict sparked widespread debate about the state of racial relations in America. Many commentators noted that the stark divergence in reaction between white and black Americans to the verdict indicated a profound racial divide in the country. For the legal community, the verdict prompted a re-evaluation of many aspects of the criminal justice system. Issues regarding the influence of media on trials, the role of racial factors in jury selection, and the reliability of DNA evidence were discussed. Politicians also weighed in. Some called for reforms in the justice system, while others used the case as a point of argument in debates about racial inequality and celebrity privilege. For the families of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, the verdict signified a lack of closure and justice. They publicly expressed their disappointment and vowed to continue their fight for justice. O.J. Simpson, now a free man, faced a new reality. Although he evaded prison, his reputation was irrevocably altered. Many continued to regard him as guilty, despite the verdict. The verdict in the Simpson case marked not merely the conclusion of a legal battle, but a moment that compelled America to gaze into the mirror and confront the profound fissures that still permeated society. It left an indelible mark on American culture and continues to provoke discussions to this day. Although O.J. Simpson was acquitted in the criminal trial, the victims' families did not relent. In 1997, they filed a civil lawsuit against Simpson. This time, the proceedings were considerably swifter, and the outcome was markedly different. Simpson was found liable for the wrongful death of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, and was ordered to pay a compensation of $33.5 million. However, he ultimately failed to pay the majority of this sum. Following his acquittal, Simpson endeavored to return to a semblance of normalcy, yet this proved to be a formidable challenge. He authored a book entitled If I Did It, in which he recounted, from a first-person perspective, how he would have committed the murder had he been responsible. This publication incited a fresh wave of controversy and outrage. In 2007, Simpson once again found himself under the scrutiny of law enforcement. He was arrested in Las Vegas on charges of armed robbery and kidnapping. Simpson contended that he was merely attempting to reclaim his personal belongings that had been stolen from him. This time, the court was far less lenient. In 2008, Simpson was sentenced to 33 years in prison for his crimes in Las Vegas. He served his sentence in a Nevada state prison, where, according to fellow inmates, he was regarded as a model prisoner. In 2017, after 9 years of incarceration, Simpson was granted parole. The commission unanimously voted in favor of his release, and in October 2017, he regained his freedom. For the families of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, the case never truly concluded. They continued to fight for justice, striving to collect the damages awarded to them in the civil trial and to preserve the memory of their deceased loved ones. The Simpson case became a watershed moment in the coverage of legal proceedings. It spawned an entire industry of legal commentators and transformed the manner in which the media reports on criminal cases. The case inspired numerous books, films, television series, and documentaries. It became an integral part of American pop culture, frequently referenced in various contexts. Despite the conclusion of the trials, many questions remained unanswered. New theories and investigations emerged, including speculations regarding the involvement of other individuals in the murders. The Simpson case had a lasting impact on the U.S. legal system, altering approaches to jury selection, the use of DNA evidence, and the media's portrayal of legal proceedings. It also became a significant milestone in the discourse surrounding racial issues in America. After his release, Simpson settled in Las Vegas, where he led a relatively quiet life. He actively engaged with social media, often commenting on current events. On April 10, 2024, O.J. Simpson passed away from cancer, leaving behind a legacy as one of the most controversial figures in American history. The O.J. Simpson case irrevocably transformed American society, the legal system, and the media landscape. It remains a poignant example of how celebrity, race, and justice can intertwine, creating a narrative that captivates the nation and continues to resonate decades later.